I returned to the country without telling David Harris, wearing my wedding dress, ready to fulfill our 3-year engagement promise. Instead, I found David Harris and a stand-in having their engagement ceremony. Seeing a face identical to mine, the stand-in, Chloe Lu, burst into tears on the spot and stumbled out. David Harris snapped at me, furious, "Why does your face have to look like that? It's unsettling." The groom chased after the bride, leaving me standing there awkwardly. The guests pointed and whispered, and I became a laughingstock. Right then, I made a phone call. "Mom, I accept the arranged marriage with the Thompson family." After David Harris left, all the guests swarmed around me. Their faces were familiar, my close friends. Their tone was mocking. "Why did you have to come back now and make everyone unhappy? Wouldn't it have been better to just die abroad? Chloe has endured so much over the years because of that face of yours. She was finally getting her life together, and you come back like a troublemaker messing things up. Apologize, show some remorse, or I won't consider you a friend anymore." Their eyes were full of disgust. But I ignored them and walked straight past. I didn't need these so-called friends. I went back to the place I had shared with David Harris for 6 years. After 3 years away, I thought I'd come to the wrong place. My things in the master bedroom were gone, replaced by someone else's. A lace lingerie set and men's boxers were casually lying on the big bed. Just then, David Harris's phone call came in. He immediately launched into accusations. "How long do you think I've been hiding this from Chloe? Why did you have to show up and let her know?" Facing his agitation, I replied calmly, "Did you forget the 3-year pact? 3 years ago, I told him I was going abroad to study. He held me reluctantly and said he would wait for me forever. He promised me a grand wedding when I returned. After I left, he stood at the airport, looking in the direction I'd gone, and cried for 3 days and 3 nights. David Harris on the other end of the line was silent for a long time before he slowly said, "I didn't forget. But because of you, Chloe has been hurt too much. You have to get her forgiveness and consent before I can have the chance to marry you." It felt like he was doing me a favor. I scoffed. Hearing me laugh, David Harris frowned. Just as he was about to say something, Chloe Lu's voice came from the other end. Her tone was pathetic. "So, David, I was just a stand-in, right? You only said you'd marry me as a joke." After she spoke, David Harris dropped the phone in a panic. "No. Like Chloe is so beautiful, everyone else only looks like you. And I would never marry her." Those 2 denials sent a chill through my heart. Ignoring their lovey-dovey talk on the phone, I hung up immediately. David Harris didn't come back until evening. He was startled when he opened the door and saw me. "How did you trespass? Where did you get the key?" He seemed to have forgotten that I had decorated this place, bought the furniture, and even had the key made. As if realizing something, a flicker of guilt crossed David Harris's eyes. Then, he took out a ring from behind his back and held it out to me. "Isn't it beautiful? I had it specially made for you." He then gently took my hand, about to put it on. "You owe Chloe too much. I don't even need you to apologize anymore. Get plastic surgery. I'll pay for it. I'll marry you after the surgery." His tone was full of generosity and entitlement. "The fact that Chloe looks like you is a hurdle for her. This is how you make it up to Chloe, and it's also the price for me to marry you." At that, I took off the ring in my hand, which was engraved with Chloe Lu's initials, and threw it hard at David Harris's face. "Impossible." I turned and went into the room, but David Harris sneered at my retreating back. "Sarah Miller, don't you want to get Marie D? Don't be ridiculous. As long as you don't get plastic surgery, I won't marry you." He confidently thought he could control me with marriage. But I was never someone who would compromise my feelings. When it came to love, I'd cut ties decisively. I hadn't eaten since I got off the plane. The next day, I woke up and made myself breakfast. When David Harris woke up and saw me holding a fork and eating, his eyes widened. He rushed over and snatched the fork from my hand. "Chloe is a germaphobe. If you touch this, it'll be dirty, and she won't eat." David Harris looked annoyed, muttering, "You don't know how hard to appease Chloe is." Just then, the lock clicked open. It was Chloe Lu returning, and David Harris quickly hid the fork behind his back. Then, he looked at Chloe Lu with delight. "Chloe, you've thought things through, right?" But Chloe Lu just rushed in defiantly. "No, I'm just an outsider. I only came back to get my things and leave." The next second, David Harris blocked her, saying in a panic, "Chloe, what are you talking about? This is your home. You're never an outsider, you'll always be my Chloe. If anyone dares to kick you out, I'll fight them first." At that, Chloe Lu cried, "Really?" David Harris nodded vigorously, hugging her tightly and tenderly wiping away her tears. They ignored me, treating me like air, but I didn't care. After all, I was already planning to leave. That night, David Harris told me to sleep in the guest room, claiming Chloe Lu wasn't used to it. Seeing him rush into the master bedroom with Chloe Lu, I asked coolly, "Are you going to sleep with Chloe Lu?" David Harris's eyes darted around, "Of course not. Chloe is scared alone at night, I need to keep her company. I'll sleep on the floor. Don't think of me like that." But in the middle of the night, I heard muffled sounds of passion and the frantic shaking of the bed from the next room. The next morning, David Harris looked refreshed. And Chloe Lu shyly held his hand secretly. At breakfast, Chloe Lu said she wanted to go racing. When I was younger, I loved racing. My defining moment with David Harris was because of racing. Back then, while watching a race, a car went out of control and crashed into the stands. David Harris used his body to shield me, and he ended up in the emergency room himself. That's when I decided I had to marry him. David Harris readily agreed. But Chloe Lu unexpectedly called out to me, "Sarah, why don't you come too?" I was about to refuse, but David Harris frowned. "Stop making that glum face every day, it's a downer." Finally, he dragged me into the car. Chloe Lu immediately pushed me out of the way and naturally sat in the passenger seat. I was on the phone and didn't have time to bother with her. "Sarah, let's set the wedding for a month from now." I was surprised. "A month? Okay." David Harris clearly heard it. "A month? What are you doing?" "Nothing." Seeing that I wasn't in the mood to talk, David Harris didn't press the issue awkwardly. When we arrived at the racetrack, the team members saw David Harris and Chloe Lu and greeted them. "Hey, man." "Hey, Chloe." David Harris subconsciously glanced at me. Seeing I had no expression, he seemed to relax. Later, the team members noticed me and all asked who I was. In the 3 years I was gone, the faces in the racing scene had changed. I didn't recognize anyone. Chloe Lu kindly linked arms with me, she's someone I brought along to race with. Then, she looked at me, "Sarah, I heard your racing skills are great. How about you race against me?" The team members were surprised to hear about my skills. As expected of someone associated with David's circle, "Your racing skills are good. Show us what you've got." It had been a long time since I'd touched a steering wheel, so I didn't refuse. But as I was getting in the car, David Harris came up beside me. He lowered his voice and warned me, "Chloe really wants to win. Let her win, you owe her." I gave him a cold look, said nothing, and got in the car. As I stepped on the gas, I felt the long-lost joy and thrill. This time, David Harris unexpectedly offered to be my navigator, sitting off the track. He would broadcast the road conditions ahead to me via radio. 10 minutes after the race started, my excellent driving skills had already left Chloe miles behind. At first, I didn't trust David Harris, but after he accurately reported the road conditions ahead multiple times, I strangely began to trust him. It was a habit. David Harris used to be my navigator. That was 6 years of chemistry. But just as the race was ending, David Harris's voice came through the radio again. "After the big turn, it's a straightaway. Just push through and you'll win the race." Coming out of the big turn, I subconsciously floored the gas pedal. But it wasn't a straightaway at all, it was an even bigger curve. The car and I went straight through the guardrail. After flipping several times and finally stopping, I lay in a pool of blood. As my consciousness faded, I saw the team members ahead cheering around Chloe Lu. And David Harris and Chloe Lu were tightly embracing and kissing passionately. "Chloe, I knew you'd win." I thought David Harris, even if he didn't love me, wouldn't joke around with my life. But in the end, just so Chloe Lu could win, he directly joked around with my life. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital. David Harris was sitting by my hospital bed. Seeing me wake up, he looked surprised. Then, he said guiltily, "Sarah, I didn't expect your car to fly off the guardrail. I just purely wanted Chloe to win." Then, he gently stroked my face. "Sarah, why didn't you tell me you went abroad to get treatment?" He held a medical report, which stated I had a history of brain cancer surgery. Yes, in those 3 years, I was actually abroad to remove a tumor in my brain. But I didn't want David Harris to know and be sad, so I lied and said I was going abroad to study. Look. Back now, how ridiculous it seems. I looked at him indifferently. What difference would it have made if I told you? David Harris choked up. After a long pause, he looked at me slowly. He said with deep emotion, "Sarah, I'll be good to you from now on, I'll never let you down." Over the next few days, David Harris came to visit me. He would occasionally bring me home-cooked meals, but they were either things I didn't like or was allergic to. One day, David Harris took a deep breath, gathering his courage. Sarah, I might have to put that promise on hold. All these years, I've seen Chloe as your stand-in and hurt her repeatedly. Now she's depressed and just wants a home. I need to atone. Then, he gazed at me with deep affection, tightly holding my hand. But don't worry, I promised I wouldn't let you down, Sarah. After I marry Chloe, once she recovers, I'll divorce her and be with you. Anyway, I was getting married, so I didn't care. I just nodded dismissively. Seeing my affirmation, David Harris felt relieved. After that day, he didn't come back. But Chloe Lu posted a lot online. One day it was wedding photos, the next it was wedding invitations and photos of her and David Harris kissing passionately. Meanwhile, I quietly left the hospital and went back home. Time was short, so my dad and my mom both pitched in. They booked a wedding dress designer and a makeup artist, all so I could look my best on my wedding day. Time flew by. I didn't expect it's such a small world. My wedding car even ran into David Harris's. When David Harris saw my dad, he got out of the car respectfully. "Mr. Miller, is this your daughter's wedding? What a coincidence, I'll move out of your way." With that, David Harris got back in his car. As he was about to start the engine, he saw me in the back passenger seat. He looked startled. At that moment, I was wearing my veil. Chloe Lu was also wearing a veil, looking at the stunned David Harris. She nudged David Harris with her elbow and asked curiously, "David, what's wrong?" David Harris shook his head and looked away. "Nothing, I just thought that person's figure looked a bit like Sarah." Hearing my name, Chloe Lu's hand tightened. But David Harris didn't notice and chuckled a few times. I must be overthinking it. Given how much Sarah loves me, how could she possibly get married behind my back? Meanwhile, on my side, my dad in the driver's seat furiously honked the horn several times. He kept cursing David Harris. He really has a death wish, still daring to show his face in front of me. If it weren't for my daughter's big day today, I'd probably go up there and beat him up. My dad wasn't angry for no reason. The family had arranged an arranged marriage with the Thompson Corp, but they only told me when the engagement was approaching. I had seen too many friends who had arranged marriages and didn't live well. So, I ran away. Later, I met David Harris. David Harris wasn't the rising business star of Westwood Heights back then. He was just a fresh-faced young man starting his own business. He pursued me passionately. Even when he had no money, he would buy me what he considered expensive luxury jewelry. And during that racing competition, he used his body to shield me, which deeply moved me. I once believed this was love. At that time, my dad and my mom regretted it. And my mom cried to me on the phone, saying if I came back, they wouldn't force the arranged marriage anymore. They just wanted me to stay home and be the Miller family's little princess. And my dad, who had never bowed his head in his life, said this time, "Come back, Dad will do anything you want." But at the time, I was caught up in this ethereal love and insisted on staying by David Harris's side. And David Harris never knew that I was the heiress of a top family in Westwood Heights. Seeing my stubborn refusal to come back, my dad worried I would suffer hardship with David Harris. So he had been secretly providing David Harris with resources. And now, the Harris Corp that David Harris built couldn't have been built without my dad's secret assistance. I always thought I would live a happy life with David Harris in the future. But frequent nosebleeds and fainting spells left me bewildered. Until a medical report made me lose hope for the future. There was a small chance of surviving brain cancer, but thinking of David Harris, I fought desperately to survive. Hearing that a medical center abroad had saved a brain cancer patient, my dad and my mom cried as they sent me abroad. And I told David Harris a white lie. After recovering, my first thought was to find David Harris. I returned to the country without telling him. My dad and my mom saw my state and didn't stop me anymore. But unexpectedly, after I returned, I ended up injured all over again. A few days ago, my dad saw me in the hospital bed like that. He was so angry he wanted to grab a broom and rush to David Harris's place and beat him up. I stopped him. David Harris over there snapped out of his daze and was about to start the car. And sitting next to me was Christopher Thompson, the Thompson family's son. Seeing me spacing out, his large, warm hand wrapped around my waist. With a pull, I fell directly into his arms. His voice was low and dangerous, echoing in my ear, "You're a married woman now, still thinking about shady people outside?" I pushed him away. "No, I'm not thinking about him anymore. Now he and I are just strangers." Hearing me say this, Christopher Thompson looked satisfied. On the other side, David Harris was driving happily. His left hand on the steering wheel, his right hand still holding Chloe Lu's hand reluctantly. He was chatting happily with the groomsmen. "Do you think my future collaboration with Miller Corp will get better? What a coincidence, I even ran into the wedding of the Miller Corp heiress's daughter. The groomsman nodded repeatedly. Yeah, Chloe really brings you good luck. David Har is didn't deny it and looked at Chloe Lu with deep affection. Then, as if unintentionally, he asked, what was the name of that Miller family heiress again? The groomsman thought for a moment, then said, before, it was never publicly announced. It was only disclosed after the arranged marriage news came out recently. I think her name is Sarah Miller. Yes, that's right, that's the name. David Harris beside him froze instantly, then stiffly turned his head and stared intently at the groomsman. Say that again, what's her name? Chloe Lu beside him instantly became nervous. She said casually, David, what does her name matter? Isn't the most important thing for us our wedding right now? The groomsman had never seen David Harris so flustered before, and he was now sweating profusely. He also quickly echoed Chloe Lu's words, yes, man, the most important thing now is your big wedding with Chloe. Let's drive quickly, don't miss the auspicious time. However, David Harris ignored them and directly took out his phone. He searched for news of the Miller family and Thompson family arranged marriage. The internet was flooded with photos of me and Christopher Thompson. After seeing them, David Harris's eyes immediately turned red. He stared at Chloe Lu like a hawk. Did you turn off the news notifications on my phone? Chloe Lu's face instantly turned pale, and she didn't dare speak. She had known about my wedding recently but had kept it hidden from David Harris. The next second, David Harris got out of the wedding car. Chloe Lu frantically shouted, David, what are you doing? We're getting married. But David Harris didn't respond to her and rushed towards the Thompson family estate as if nothing had happened. All the groomsmen in the car were silent. And Chloe Lu cried until her makeup was ruined. She muttered to herself, it was so close, we were almost married, why? Why, as the bride, from the bride's family side, I was directly sent to the Thompson family estate. After being led into the bridal suite by the bridesmaid, Christopher Thompson arrived shortly after. He seemed to have had some alcohol and was a bit drunk. The moment he reached out to me, I immediately lifted my veil. I shouted sternly, Christopher Thompson. But my shout didn't make Christopher Thompson stop. His large hand went straight towards me and wrapped around my waist. With a pull, I fell directly into his arms. His eyes were red. So, you're still thinking about that man, aren't you? After being treated like this, haven't you learned your lesson? You really don't want to marry me? He grew angrier as he spoke, and he ripped my clothes directly. Then, scattered kisses fell upon my body. I closed my eyes, feeling my body tremble. It was a long time before I spoke. Christopher Thompson, don't make me hate you. At that, Christopher Thompson stopped his actions. Then, he actually cried. His mouth turned down, and he looked at me with a wronged expression. But I felt that the person in front of me was the most familiar version of him, overlapping with the little boy who used to follow me around. Actually, Christopher Thompson and I were childhood friends, we had been close since birth. But I had always thought of him as a buddy. It wasn't until I heard the news of the arranged marriage, that I was to marry Christopher Thompson, that it felt even more absurd to marry my own buddy. I subconsciously reached out my hand and slowly wiped away Christopher Thompson's tears. I sighed, stop crying. You loved to cry when you were little, why are you still crying now that you're grown up? We haven't seen each other for so many years, and the moment we meet, you're crying again. Anyway, you just think of me as a buddy, so why don't we just continue to get along as buddies? Why are you suddenly acting so impulsive? But Christopher Thompson suddenly stopped crying and grabbed my hand tightly. His eyes were still red. Sarah Miller, are you really naive or just pretending? I like you, can't you tell? At that, I froze in place, thinking I had misheard. Christopher Thompson gave a cold laugh. I've been following you around since I was a kid. When you were little and naughty and always got into trouble, I was the one who took the blame for you. The high school you got into, the university you got into, I applied to them all following you. I was stammering, you weren't my buddy? I always thought you were. Christopher Thompson interrupted me directly, I don't have a buddy as close as you. Just as I was about to speak again, a housekeeper from the Thompson family suddenly knocked on the door. Christopher Thompson frowned, and I quickly straightened my clothes. Christopher Thompson's tone wasn't very pleasant. What is it? The housekeeper also realized she had come at a bad time, but she still said respectfully, it seems a guest has arrived, someone named David Harris. At that, Christopher Thompson subconsciously looked at me. I calmly straightened my clothes. Until I saw the meaning in his eyes, I acted as if I were clearing myself of any association, just kick him out. Seeing my reaction, Christopher Thompson unconsciously curved his lips into a smile. The housekeeper looked troubled, but that person has been knocking for a long time, and after the security guards threw him out, he came back again stubbornly. What a pest, utterly shameless, Christopher Thompson cursed. I raised an eyebrow and looked at him. I asked tentatively, why don't we go take a look together? Christopher Thompson tilted his head back proudly, definitely. I need to monitor you to make sure you're not cheating on me. I chuckled. It seemed all the unpleasantness of the past few days had dissipated. When the door opened, David Harris saw me and rushed forward, grabbing my hand, trying to leave. Let's go home. Christopher Thompson's eyes widened, but before he could react, I broke free from David Harris's grip. Mr. Harris, why are you here looking for me instead of going to your wedding? I looked him up and down. He was wearing his wedding attire but looked disheveled. David Harris looked at me in disbelief. Sarah, I came to rescue you. I know you must be being forced. You don't want to marry this man at all. He pointed at Christopher Thompson. But I laughed, then looked at him with disdain. David Harris, you're too confident, aren't you? What makes you think I'm being forced? Because you love me. And I love you. His reaction was very quick. But I looked at him coldly. Love me? Does loving me mean finding a mistress while I was away for 3 years? Or is it, during the race recently, trying to make Chloe Lu win the race and leaving me in the emergency room, nearly dying? With every sentence I spoke, David Harris's face got a shade paler. Finally, he lowered his head in shame, but he still tried to justify himself. I just wanted to make it up to her, because Chloe was hurt too much by the stand-in issue. As if talking himself into it, his tone became firmer. That's right, that's how it was. I was only with Chloe because I missed you and wanted a substitute. Now that you're back, I naturally have to make it up to her, and besides, she's depressed now. But I cut him off directly. Stop using stand-in and depressed as excuses. Don't you know whether she's really depressed or not? I was tired of hearing these words. If you truly love someone, how could you accept someone else who's similar? The more you imagine it, the more you should resist it, hating others for having everything that belongs to me, despising a face that looks like mine. You don't love me. You just couldn't wait for me. You were lonely and wanted someone. That's all. Hearing my words, David Harris fell silent. Because everything I said was true, it was his darkest side, his cover-up. After a long while, he finally lifted his head with difficulty and looked at me. And if I'm no longer with Chloe Lu, and I send her away and make sure she doesn't appear in front of you, can we still have a future? I shook my head. I'm not someone who goes back to old relationships, I think it's cheap. So, it's impossible in this life unless I'm dead. At that, David Harris's pupils contracted, and his face was full of despair. But he still wanted to struggle, reaching out to grab my arm. But Christopher Thompson beside him knocked his hand away forcefully. This is my wife. Don't touch her. David Harris was almost crying with anxiety. But my attitude was cold. Go back. Go marry your Chloe. There's nothing more to discuss between us, and there's no need to meet again in the future. Sarah. Christopher Thompson's eyes turned cold. If you don't want the company you've run for so many years to go bankrupt overnight, then get lost, or I won't mind stepping in. Christopher Thompson wasn't joking when he said that. He had the power. After all, as the heir of the Thompson Corp., also a top family in Westwood Heights, he had already taken over the entire Thompson family with his outstanding performance. Hearing about Harris Corp. Going bankrupt, David Harris didn't dare make any more moves. He let go of my hand. Honestly, I had always looked down on David Harris. When faced with love and profit, he would always choose profit. Before leaving, he looked at me deeply. Sarah, I'll come find you again. On the wedding night, Christopher Thompson didn't touch me. He said he wouldn't force me to do anything I didn't want to. The next day, I saw news about David Harris on my phone. The headline was, Harris Corp CEO abandons bride on wedding day, rushes to true love. It described at length the scene of David Harris getting out of the wedding car and included a video of Chloe Lu crying until she fainted. After David Harris failed to win me back, the first thing he did when he returned home was to break off the engagement with Chloe Lu. Chloe Lu cried and fell to her knees, tightly hugging David Harris's leg. But David Harris kicked her away without mercy and drove her out of the house. Not long after this happened, David Harris manipulated public opinion online. He claimed I was bullied and forced into the arranged marriage with Christopher Thompson. In reality, the person I had always loved was David Harris. Because the matter involved many major business figures, it attracted a lot of discussion. The situation kept escalating, subtly showing a trend of escalating uncontrollably. Even though Christopher Thompson had immense influence, he couldn't control the mouths of tens of thousands of internet users. But his first concern wasn't whether Thompson Corp would be harmed by this, but rushing home. He asked me with red eyes if what the rumors online said was true, asking if I was forced to marry him. The truth was, I didn't want to at all. But I shook my head, put my hand on his head, and kissed him directly. Christopher Thompson's pupils constricted as he realized what was happening. Then, he slowly deepened the kiss. The kiss was long. It wasn't until he reluctantly released me that he noticed I was crying. He awkwardly wiped away my tears. "Sarah, why are you crying?" Just then, my mom had called me. She said she learned about how I was getting along with Christopher from the Thompson family's housekeeper. Then, she sighed heavily. She recounted to me all the things Christopher Thompson had done for me over the years. Back then, when you were diagnosed with brain cancer? It wasn't actually Dad and I who found and contacted the foreign expert. It was Christopher Thompson. He cried all night after he found out, and the next day he desperately pulled strings to find the top medical team for your treatment. Finally, when he learned there was an expert abroad who had saved a brain cancer patient, he was overjoyed. But that expert was over 70 and had long retired. He wasn't working anymore. And Christop. Her Thompson bought the earliest flight abroad and pleaded relentlessly at their door for 3 days and 3 nights just to get you this opportunity. My nose stung, and I choked up a little. Then why didn't you tell me back then? My mom sighed again. That child didn't let me tell you. He said you ran away from the wedding because you hated him, and he was afraid you wouldn't get treatment out of spite because of him. Do you know how happy that child was when he learned you agreed to the arranged marriage? He immediately said he wanted to move the wedding date forward, the sooner the better, because he was afraid you'd run away again. Looking at Christopher Thompson in front of me, I gradually realized that this person who seemed carefree had secretly done so much for me, yet told me nothing. Why didn't you tell me about all those things you did? Christopher Thompson paused, then slowly smiled. You found out, Sarah. I wasn't going to tell you. Otherwise, you'd just say I was silly again. How could I? I sniffled and hugged him tightly. The feelings from years of friendship seemed to sprout in an instant. From that day on, my relationship with Christopher Thompson returned to how it was when we were children, but with a difference. As for the rumors David Harris spread online, I also made a public response. Immediately, the rumors were debunked. Unable to do anything else, David Harris contacted me again. I originally didn't want to agree, but he said I had left some things at the Harris family place and he had packed them up. Half believing, I went anyway. But I didn't tell Christopher Thompson. If he knew, he would make a fuss again. These past few days, he knew I had opened up and had been relentless in bed, and I went along with it under half-hearted resistance. He's been smug about it these past few days. David Harris arranged to meet me at a cafe. When I got there, I didn't see any of the so-called luggage. After I sat down, he pushed the cup of coffee in front of me. I made this cappuccino myself. Your favorite. Because I liked coffee. After we started dating, David Harris even specifically worked part-time at a cafe to learn how to make it for me. There was a heart on top of this cup of coffee, but I didn't touch it. Get to the point. Why did you trick me into coming here? Hearing my words, David Harris looked heartbroken again. Then, he took out a very simple and old wallet from his pocket. It was peeling a bit, but I recognized it at a glance. It was the wallet I bought for David Harris with my first salary from the factory after I ran away from home and was with the newly entrepreneurial David Harris. Sarah, isn't this unexpected? Even after you were abroad for 3 years, and even now, I've never changed my wallet. As he spoke, he pulled out a yellowed photo from a hidden compartment in the wallet. It was a Polaroid photo from our first date after we got together. I felt a little distant. David Harris's eyes were slightly red. Sarah, look at these things. Don't you feel anything? The 6 years we were together weren't fake at all. They were real, and my love for you was real too. But I snapped back from the beautiful memories of the past. I looked directly at David Harris with indifference. I've never denied what happened between us before, but the things you did to hurt me are also real. David Harris looked bewildered, crying out in pain, what man hasn't made a mistake? Can't you just forgive me this once? No. I said definitively, no. Those beautiful memories have turned into bubbles, and you are a thing of the past. At that, David Harris's hand was shaking, and his whole body trembled. He suddenly stood up, accidentally knocking over the cappuccino. The hot coffee spilled all over him. But he seemed not to feel it at all, fleeing in a panic. I need to go to the restroom first, Sarah, wait for me. I frowned, watching his distraught back. I was about to leave when I unexpectedly ran into Chloe Liu. Here's the strawberry cake you ordered. I looked in disbelief at Chloe Lu, who was standing before me in a uniform, looking so simple that I couldn't find any trace of her former extravagant and flashy appearance. Hearing me, Chloe Lu's voice also stopped abruptly. Her eyes widened, and she glared at me. Why are you here? Are you here to see me become a laughingstock? I frowned. I didn't have the time to investigate her. But the next second, Chloe Lu's face changed dramatically, and she fell to her knees in front of me, crying heartbrokenly. Sister Sarah, I was wrong. I didn't know who I was dealing with before. I didn't expect your status to be so noble. Since you have so much, please don't try to take David back from me, okay? Hearing her words, I scoffed. Honestly, I really don't understand. As the mistress, how do you have the nerve to say such high-sounding words? I have so much, so I should give the man to you? What kind of logic is that? Besides, I don't even care about David Harris anymore. He means nothing to me, and I have no time to fight you for him. If you want him, you can have him anytime. But Chloe Lu seemed to have lost her mind, looking a bit unhinged. She slowly looked up at me, the tears gone from her face, replaced by malice. So, you're not going to give him up? I didn't understand. Did she not understand something I said or what? I just wanted to get away from this crazy person. But the next second, Chloe Lu grabbed the dessert knife from the table. Crazy. I muttered under my breath. Sarah. David Harris, coming out of the restroom, saw it too and rushed towards me anxiously. But he was too far away and couldn't reach me in time. Just at that critical moment, I grabbed the knife. My hand was bleeding. I gritted my teeth, but Chloe Lu's strength was too great. But the next moment, Christopher Thompson arrived. Before David Harris could do anything, he kicked Chloe Lu away. Seeing I was saved, David H. Harris felt empty inside. Then, Christopher Thompson looked at me anxiously. His eyes were full of fear and heartache. Are you okay? My face was pale. David Harris cried directly, like a child, why didn't you tell me you were going out? What good could come from meeting someone like her? I had lost too much blood. Before my consciousness faded, I wiped away the tears from David Harris's eyes. It's okay, it's just a little blood. With that, I fainted. When I woke up, I found Christopher Thompson asleep with his head on my cup. A nurse came in just then to change my dressing and was pleasantly surprised to see I was awake. Just as she was about to speak, I stopped her. Shoo. Realizing something, the nurse lowered her voice. As she changed my dressing, she said softly, I really envy you, Miss Miller. I've never seen such a considerate man. Among my friends, their husbands wouldn't bring themselves to personally care for them. But your husband, who is in a high position, not only stays with you every day but does everything himself, afraid that we might be careless and not take good care of you. Hearing the nurse, I learned that I had been unconscious for 7 days due to heavy bleeding. During this time, Christopher Thompson hadn't even gone to the company. He had been taking care of me constantly. He fed me, wiped my body, and kept telling me stories by my ear. The more the nurse talked, the more I blushed, especially when she talked about Christopher Thompson wiping my body and helping me change clothes. Although I was shy, my heart was full of sweetness. But the nurse became more and more excited as she talked, her voice unconsciously getting louder. When she was talking enthusiastically, suddenly a voice came, Are you done talking? The nurse stopped abruptly and retreated apologetically. The dressing is changed. I won't disturb you anymore. I looked at Christopher Thompson with a sideways glance and said teasingly, Why did you scare the young nurse? But Christopher Thompson's serious look startled me. I had never seen him like this before. His voice was filled with suppressed anger. Do you know how reckless you are, Sarah Miller? Is there no one in this world you care about? You're always like this, reckless, thinking you can handle everything yourself. As he spoke, Christopher Thompson slowly started to cry. But have you ever thought about how many people care about you? If something happened to you, how would they live? My heart felt a pang. I then hugged Christopher Thompson. I comforted him, I'm sorry, it was my fault. In this life, I had never bowed my head to anyone, this was the first time. But seeing my reaction, Christopher Thompson's tears flowed even more profusely. You know that scene back then, all that blood. I thought you had brain cancer again, and you were going to leave me and abandon me. I cried too, my voice trembling. No, no. I'll tell you everything from now on, okay? Christopher Thompson nodded vigorously, his tears soaking my entire back. After being discharged from the hospital, I slowly learned the aftermath of the incident. After I was sent to the hospital, Chloe Lu was arrested by the police. She was originally going to be sentenced but was found to have a mental illness. She will spend the rest of her life in a mental hospital. And stories of affection between Christopher Thompson and me were circulated by people in his company, who were envious. Don't let Mr. Thompson's decisive appearance at the company fool you. He is actually a doting husband in front of Mrs. Thompson. Really? Absolutely. The last time I went to Mr. Thompson's place to deliver documents, I saw with my own eyes Mr. Thompson washing Mrs. Thompson's feet. While washing, he even considerately asked Mrs. Thompson if the water temperature was too hot. The employee looked impressed. Time passed, and another 3 years went by. David Harris seemed to have disappeared from my world. One day, Christopher Thompson accompanied me to a prenatal checkup. After coming out of the prenatal examination room, Christopher Thompson stroked my belly. Like a little old man, he kept rambling and reminding me to take care of my body. I smiled and nodded at every word he said. Just then, David Harris came out of the psychiatric department next door. He was probably there to see Chloe Lou. Seeing me, he subconsciously fumbled and lowered his head. Christopher Thompson held my hand and walked past him without paying him any mind. But just as we brushed past, David Harris's eyes turned red, and he couldn't help but call out to me, "Sarah, you're pregnant?" My steps paused for a moment, but I didn't turn my head. "Yes." After a long while, David Harris spoke. "Congratulations." With that, I had already walked far away. And David Harris stood rooted to the spot, stunned, looking at my happy back. His eyes were full of regret and self-loathing. End.